The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was somehow able to squeeze Colbert out of CBS. Then he turned his sights on me, and now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't make millions.
You said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. Terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
I didn't know you meant that, Donald Trump.
Imagine the sheer nerve it takes for a sitting president and his loyal sidekick to think they're rewriting American history, when, in truth, they resemble a slapstick duo, too clumsy even for Saturday morning reruns. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't need a script. Trump and J.D. Vance hand him the punchlines live. Every blunder, every contradiction, every forced display of seriousness that crumbles into self-parody serves as a setup waiting to be crushed. And Kimmel swings the wrecking ball with flawless timing, leaving nothing but shattered egos and thunderous applause.
Tylenol. It's been overwhelming. I've heard from a lot of people over the last 6 days. I've heard from all the people in the world over the last 6 days. Everyone I have ever met has reached out 10 or 11 times. Weird characters from my past are the guy who fired me from my first radio job in Seattle, where we are not airing tonight, by the way. Sorry, Seattle. His name is Larry. In 1989, Larry tried to force me to do a bit called Jokes for Donuts, where people would call in with a joke and I would give them donuts. I refused to do it, and I made a lot of fun of Larry for suggesting it, and eventually Larry fired me, and I had to move back in with my parents. But even he wrote in to cheer me up. Thank you, Larry, and I want to thank everyone who checked in. It would take all week to list all of them, but some that I do especially want to mention are my fellow late night talk show hosts, my friend Stephen Colbert, who's found himself in this predicament, my friends Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Conan O'Brien, James Corden, Arsenio, Kathy, Wanda, Chelsea, even Jay reached out. Sometimes I wonder in what world is the vice president of the United States calling into a giant-toothed podcast host to badmouth me and the people who watch this show.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency. You're an attorney. How do you assess the legal battles here?
Yeah, I bet all those judges are huge fans of Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. But I think, Vince, that one, we have an appeals process.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Kimmel zeroes in on the Carnival Act right away. Trump, the self-anointed titan of success, struts as if reality itself bows to his whims, while Vance trails at his side like an overeager understudy, praying the star takes a fall. The contrast is laughable. One man endlessly inflating his own greatness, and another who's built his career convincing people the emperor is fully dressed despite the glaring fluorescent orange glow. Together, they're less a political force and more a novelty act that stumbled into the wrong talent show.
Are here. Our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Stephen off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
The genius of Kimmel's roast is that he exposes both men for what they really are, performers. Trump delivers every appearance like a desperate audition for a role he's convinced was written about him, complete with overblown pauses and staged outrage. Vance plays the dutiful chorus member, clapping on cue and reciting lines that were never believable in the first place. Kimmel
tears down the facade by showing that neither of them is truly leading, they're just fumbling through a bad improv routine in front of a crowd too drained to even bother booing.
Not that. Look, it's just me, Jimmy, the chairman of the FCC, gently suggesting that you gently shut the f*** up.
But you can't say that. That's a violation of free speech.
Oh, yeah, about that. Speech, it ain't free no more.
What? It's not free no more?
Yeah, we're charging by the word now.
You're charging by the word? How much are you charging?
Depends on what you want to say. Like, you want to say something nice about the president's beautiful, thick yellow hair, or how he can do his makeup better than any broad. That's free.
When Trump brags about his legendary business genius, Kimmel gleefully reminds the audience it's propped up by a mountain of bankruptcies and lawsuits so towering it could qualify as a national park. The self-styled mogul who couldn't keep casinos alive still insists he's the master of prosperity, while standing next to a senator who once sold his rags to riches memoir as proof of authenticity, only to auction off that authenticity for a seat at Trump's table. The irony practically writes itself. The businessman who failed upward and the author who betrayed his own story, now bound together in a political buddy act, collapsing under its own weight.
To being a direct violation of the First Amendment is not a particularly intelligent threat to make in public. Ted Cruz said he sounded like a mafioso. Although, I don't know, if you want to hear a mob boss make a threat like that, you have to hide a microphone in a deli and park outside in a van with a tape recorder all night long. This genius said it on a podcast. Brendan Carr is the most embarrassing car Republicans have embraced since this.
Kimmel feasts on the contradictions. Trump rages against elites while living as one, dining on gold-plated steaks in resorts that lease out his name like a clearance coupon. Vance once branded himself as the voice of the forgotten, only to forget his own lines the moment power called. Together, they deliver the world's least convincing sketch of populism, a routine so weak it wouldn't survive open mic night at a strip mall comedy club. The audience isn't laughing because it's clever, they're laughing because the only other option is stunned disbelief.
How long you worked here?
A year.
Okay. Donut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which donut, though?
Just whatever makes sense. No pickles. Hold the pickles.
Oh, well, no, I can get that for you.
What makes Kimmel's roast sting is its precision. He doesn't exaggerate. The facts are ridiculous enough. A president who calls himself a strongman but whines about being mistreated. A senator who once trashed Trump now mimics him like a ventriloquist dummy. Their contradictions are so blatant, Kimmel barely has to write jokes. He just points the spotlight at clowns juggling hypocrisy. Vance brands himself Trump's understudy, mistaking loyalty for parroting lines with a plastic grin. It's like trading a compass for a ticket on a sinking ship. Trump beams at his new yes man, parading him as strength, while everyone else sees it for what it is, a hostage video in nicer suits.
There's a tradition of meddling where they shouldn't under many administrations, but it wasn't always like this. There was an FCC commissioner back in 2022 who worked under Joe Biden who was spot on. He wrote, "President Biden is right. Political satire is one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech. It challenges those in power while using humor to draw more people into the discussion. That's why people in influential positions have always targeted it for censorship." You know who wrote that? FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr.
Kimmel hammers Trump's communication style, mocking rallies that play like blooper reels disguised as blockbusters. The president mixes self-praise with endless grievances until the whole act becomes a parody of itself. Vance nods along like a nervous hype man, too timid to improvise. Kimmel highlights how the supposed message of unity gets drowned in a soundtrack of complaints, the strongman routine collapsing into a whine that could be charted. Even policy turns to comedy, pitched like late-night infomercials, big, flashy, impossible, and doomed to fail. Vance co-signs every half-baked idea, as if his signature alone could turn them into law. The result isn't governance, it's performance art gone wrong.
Hi, I'm Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. The mainstream media, they want you to think that I'm weird. They call me creepy, cringy, awkward, that I give people something called the ick. They want you to think that I can't order a simple donut.
Trump wants to be remembered as a titan of American greatness, but Kimmel paints him as a relic of excess, a man who measures success by how loudly he can shout his own name. Vance, the apprentice in this farce, becomes a warning about ambition without integrity. He's not shaping history, just clinging to the coattails of a reality show politician who can't grasp why the ratings keep falling. The laughter Kimmel draws isn't shallow, it's a weapon. By mocking their absurdities, he shatters the illusion of seriousness they try to project. Trump, the self-styled master of prosperity, is exposed as the man who left behind bankruptcies disguised as achievements. Vance, once the truth-teller for the working class, is revealed as a willing subordinate who traded independence for the cheap thrill of proximity to power. Comedy makes the contradiction between their promises and their failures impossible to ignore.
Was appointed chairman of the FCC by this former crusader for free speech.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple. Just like dominoes, one by one, they'll go down.
That was also in 2022. And I wonder, how did that guy turn into this guy?
Who would you like to see replace Kimmel on late night?
Well, a lot of people, anybody could replace him. The guy had no talent. Kimmel look, he was fired, he had no talent. He's a whack job, but he had no talent, and more importantly than talent, he had no, because a lot of people have no talent, they get...
Each flaw becomes an exhibit in a museum of hypocrisy. Trump's obsession with dominance collapses under his constant need for validation, turning every show of strength into a confession of insecurity. Vance's rebellion against elites curdles into servitude, making him the punchline of his own campaign. Kimmel doesn't exaggerate, he just distills the irony. The mogul myth crumbles, exposing Trump not as a builder of wealth, but as the face of chronic instability. Vance's journey becomes its own satire. The author who once warned of cultural decay now clings to the very embodiment of political chaos.
I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects. Some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it, and thanks. And telling their followers that our government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, and that we have to stand up to it. I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight, and the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about change.
Vance's pledge of authenticity has crumbled into clumsy displays of loyalty, more audition than conviction. His fall from critic to cheerleader is swift, and Kimmel revels in showing how quickly he abandoned principle for a second-row seat in Trump's circus. The spectacle isn't about what they say, but how far they've drifted from the images they built. Trump sought to be an indomitable force, yet his legacy dissolves into theatrics that collapse under laughter. Vance wanted to embody grit and independence, but now plays the over-eager understudy in a doomed production. The emperor is exposed not with rage, but with humor, stripped down to a costume everyone can see. The apprentice fares no better, reduced to parody alongside him. In Kimmel's hands, power becomes performance, and authority, entertainment.
I mean, seriously, if that guy walked into your office and told you he was there to start making cuts.
I have friends who met a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, who met the best man at their wedding at Turning Points USA because it was an organization of patriots dedicated to making this country the very best country that it could be.
Every contradiction adds another crack. Trump, clinging to the role of unshakable patriarch, exposes fragility with every complaint and defensive outburst. Vance, who once sold independence, now displays dependence so desperate it borders on parody. Kimmel threads these moments into a highlight reel of the worst season imaginable, where the leads can only deliver farce. The mockery works because it rests on simple truth. They are not figures of grandeur, but of comedy. Trump's myth of untouchability collapses under a record built on spectacle, not substance. Kimmel doesn't treat them as leaders to be debated, but as performers trapped in a play that should have ended long ago. Trump, the headliner who won't leave the stage, and Vance, the backup dancer, mistaking synchronized claps for relevance. In the end, the performance itself becomes the punchline.
You need to talk to the chairman of the FCC.
You don't need to know my name, and I am the new chairman of the FCC.
You were appointed FCC chairman by Donald Trump?
Sir Trump, yes. I used to do some work for the man here and there in Atlantic City.
But did I just hear you on the phone threatening Whoopi Goldberg?
No, I would never threaten Miss Goldstein. I was just teaching her a lesson about consequences.
No, well, pardon me for saying so, and maybe you're the wrong guy to talk to, but it seems like the FCC is using mob tactics to suppress free speech.
What the did you just say?
This is where the real damage lies. It's not about countering policy with policy or speech with speech. It's about stripping away the illusion. Under satire's spotlight, two men demanding to be taken seriously dissolve into caricatures. The audience laughs not because the jokes are invented, but because the reality is already absurd. Kimmel only provides context. Trump's hunger for immortality cements him instead as an icon of ridicule, a cautionary tale laughter will outlive. The final humiliation isn't losing arguments, it's losing credibility. They're not overthrown, they're unmasked. Their claims to power and grandeur collapse as humor exposes the obvious. They enter dressed for majesty, but Kimmel ensures they exit as unwilling jesters in a comedy of their own making. The laughter grows, the myths shrink, and the illusion of control vanishes into the spectacle they created.